Hello everybody, my name is Michael Woodside and I'm an animator, and today I'm going to teach you how to draw Tigger. And I have my page turned sideways so that we can draw the whole body. So it's going to be a tall drawing, so I want to make sure that you have enough room for that. First things first, I'm going to clean my hands off with this hand sanitizer, and then we can talk about the class. So if you've never done this before, then you might be wondering who this is for and what is the entry for drawing. Do you need to know how to draw well? So what I want to encourage you is that anyone can learn how to do this. We're going to go line by line, shape by shape, and that'll help us get to where we need to go without having to worry about sophisticated things you might learn in art college. We're just going to go slowly, and it should be fun. Should be a fun time. So grab a pencil. The pencil I'll be using today for my underdrawing is just this, technically a scarlet red, but it's actually kind of an orange, so I'm going to use it to color him in as well. It's a brand called Polychromos, and then another black color pencil to do the outlining, and I have a little red pencil for the nose. So simple little supplies, but it should just be an easy breezy class. So the first thing I always like to do is these warm-up circles at the top of my page, and that helps my hand get ready to draw. And it's a lot of really fun shapes that are kind of curved and kind of straight on Tigger, so we want to kind of practice with big round shapes. And again, we're going to do a long drawing all over the page, so kind of want to do some big circles as well, just to prepare for that. So when I do these circles too, I'm moving my whole arm, and I'm not just moving my shoulder, or sorry, not just my hand or my fingers. It is all starting from my shoulder. That way I can get a really solid rotation and truly warm up. So I can get really messy with these underdrawings, because if you see, I'll take this black pencil and go over it again. And then that way I can kind of define what shapes I wanted to keep for final. And then once I do that, all these little red lines that are in the background kind of fade away into the true background, and really all your focus is on those black lines. And especially when we go back into Tigger and color him in, then there's certain areas that you're really not even gonna see after this point. We'll fake some of these textures in here, and then he even has these stripes. So once we add these sorts of things in there, then you really don't get any kind of lines that distract. So don't feel bad if your drawing is really scratchy. It's gonna work pretty well, I assume. We'll hope. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. And remember, if you get halfway through this drawing and you feel like you want to throw it away, don't. We're not here to draw a perfect drawing. We're here to learn how to draw. So you want to make sure you get to the end of the drawing. That way you know that you learned something. Sometimes you can get frustrated in the middle of the drawing and then want to get rid of it. But really got to give yourself a chance to figure out if you learned it or not. So a lot of times for the characters, we start with a circle for the head shape, but we're going to go with our familiar gumdrop shape, which is, if you haven't seen it before, it's this kind of almost like a rounded trapezoid. What's a trapezoid? Trapezoid is this straight, longer on the bottom and then shorter on the top with these diagonal lines to get you there. But the rounded gumdrop is basically that, but just a little squished, like you can imagine the piece of candy here. So for our character of Tigger, he's going to have this shape, but his head is actually not going to be straight on, it's going to be tilted this direction. So I'm just going to go ahead and sort of gently draw that in. Remember, we want to leave a lot of room for the bottom of him. So whatever you draw the head, just make sure that there's room on the bottom of your page. I've seen people kind of take their drawings and add paper to the bottom of it because drawing got out of hand, but see if you can plane it. Okay, and then for the perspective, I have it on this circular ping pong ball just to show you kind of why we draw those lines back and forth. So his head is kind of tilted at this angle, and then it's sort of turned this way. So we're going to draw this vertical line that's really rounded and kind of curved this direction. And then this line is just going to go right above the bottom part that we can use for the eye mask. So I'll draw the bottom one first. It's just kind of rides parallel to that line. And then this one here, kind of rounded there. Okay, so just outside of this gumdrop, I'm going to draw a circle. It's kind of ends up a little bit higher than where we have the gumdrop, and I'm going to do pretty lightly. That's going to be Tigger's nose, and that just kind of gives us an anchor point to reach for. So right about here, in between this line that we did for our vertical line and the end of the gumdrop, halfway in between right there, it's going to draw kind of a straightish line that goes out to the nose. Actually, it'll be right about where the top of the nose is, so we're gonna I'm gonna shorten mine a bit. Okay, so now that we have this nose built, we can start kind of figuring out where the eyes go. So I'm just gonna kind of, where this line connected to the horizontal line, I'll draw a rounded line there, and then another kind of long rounded line that leaves this horizontal line, starts working up towards the top. Okay, and then from here, we're gonna start going right back up towards the center again, but it's a rounded line. These are gonna be his eyebrows that are pretty thick, so I'm just gonna start kind of locking that shape in. And that ends right at where the horizontal, sorry, the sort of horizontal line we're drawing, but the vertical center line for him is. And then we'll do the same on the other side. Okay, now we can start building in where we want the muzzle to go. So the muzzle starts on the left side of the nose, right over here. It's just a little rounded line that goes down. A little short line. And then I'm going to do kind of a straightish diagonal line that goes down to the right. That'll be the center of his nose there. And then now we're going to make this smile line go back. So I'm just going to draw a rounded line that starts at the end of this one and goes up to the bottom of our gumdrop. Gonna finish off the nose here. For the top part of the nose, we can have this little center line, a detail here. And that's useful for us in a second because we're gonna need that for building the bottom of the mouth. So we're just gonna give him a slightly open mouth. And for that, I'm gonna do a straight line here. And then kind of a rounded line that brings us right back to So smile. These are kind of advanced shapes that we haven't done before, so it's good to do it on Friday since we're warmed up for the week. All right, so now we're gonna draw his jaw. So what I did for that is I just did a little diagonal line that goes out. It's parallel to the inside of the mouth here. Just color that in, just so we know that's the inside. And it's a U shape that kind of goes out this way. And comes right back up a little bit. I did that really lightly so that we can double check it against our proportions and make sure everything feels right. That's pretty good. So now we can start building in the mouth corner shapes. So I'm going to do a little rounded line here from the nose, and then another rounded line that goes around the mouth here. This is going to be color separation. When we color it in, this part will be orange and this part stays white. Now we just continue that arc into the jaw. So a slight direction change here that happens at the end of our U. Okay, now we can draw these ears. It's going to be starting right here on the outside of the gumdrop. Just going to draw, kind of think of it's a triangle like this, but it got squished like a bug. So it's kind of rounded here, rounded there, and then rounded there. So it's not really a circle, it's not really an oval, it's kind of a rounded triangle. So I'm just going to put that in. And then we're going to give him a little line of detail in that ear. It's like that. That just shows the thickness of the ear. So it's just a rounded line that goes there. And then we can connect this just into this line here. Kind of slightly rounded. Now his other ear, kind of the same shape, but just reverse on the other side. Okay, so that's a good foundation for his head. Now we can do the neck into the body. So I'm just gonna do a little, starting from, let's say, if we make a line straight underneath the mouth and the ear, about halfway in between there. See right there. We're just gonna do kind of a rounded line that goes out to the right, just to get us started. The neck, and then same on this side, kind of connecting it to the end of the gumdrop on this side. So he's got this great, pretty simple body shape, but some confusing angles in it. So we're just going to start building his chest. So that's a big rounded line here. So Tigger's a really proud guy, right? So he's got a really rounded chest up front, and then kind of tapers into his waist. I'm just gonna sort of We're gonna make this part the round part, and then I'm just gonna draw kind of a straightish line that goes down this way. And just sort of close that off here. So this arm is really easy. So we're gonna start with that one. So starting with the slope of the neck, we're just gonna draw kind of a diagonal out to the left. This arm is gonna be behind his back. So I'm gonna stop it about halfway down this shape that we drew. And then draw a rounded line that connects back into that shape. So since this is his shoulder, you want to leave this space. We're not going to darken that line, but right about here, I'm going to start darkening it. This is where we show the overlap, where the arm is behind the body. And then we can add a little line like that. And then I'll just show that like this is the upper arm and this is the lower arm, kind of descending back behind him. And now for the other arm, not too bad, it's just a little different shape. We're gonna draw an oval right here, kind of tilted at an angle. It's gonna be his hand, his paw. And then from the end of it, we're just gonna draw a big U shape. Actually, it's probably closer to a J. And kind of a S curve that comes in from the end of the hand around there. Okay, and then we can start darkening the parts that we want to keep. So I'm not going to darken this part, I'm just darkening here and then adding a little thumb. So the thumb comes off of the top and just kind of, it's like a little curve that turns into a straight and then a little rounded line back. So for his legs, we're just going to block in a really simple shape first, and then we'll start adding the details. Remember we talked earlier this week about the idea of going general to specific, and that's what we're going to do for him. So starting at where we drew this side of his body, just going to go right back out to the side here and kind of draw a shape like that, and then bring it around here. So it's like a little bell. Think of a little bell shape on the bottom of him. And this is just really roughly to indicate where the knees are so that they're related to each other. Okay, so let's start with the right foot. So I'm just gonna start outlining this front part of the knee, leave this part alone, and then his feet they're not circular, they're not squares, they're kind of rounded squares. So we're just gonna have, let's start with drawing squares and then we can round them off. We're going to say that's 1 foot. And then I'm going to go ahead and just begin to round it off here. So this is the first part. And this is going to cut up a little higher. We'll see how far that needs to go. I might revisit that and bring it up a little higher for the bottom of the bell. I think I will. No, I'm gonna make that. I'm gonna make the whole foot bigger. Realizing he needs to be a little more balanced, so more of a rectangle than a square. Remember, we're gonna color him in with this same pencil too, so we're not gonna see that. A little line there. That it's going to be where the bottom of his hips are. Same thing on the other side, rectangle. Except now we know it's a rectangle. He's pressing down with those feet, so that's why they're a little squishy. Same thing on that foot. Okay, so that is where we put the bottom of his feet. Probably. I wonder if this foot is maybe a little too big. So you guys, we figure them out as we go. So it's okay to make mistakes because that is how we learn. And then if I like this size foot better, even keeping this line on the page, this just helps me remember, oh, I have a tendency to make this foot too big, so it's sort of a moment for me to remember to double check that whenever I draw him again. So that's why I've talked about it before, but I really like learning through drawing, making mistakes in a drawing. One of my favorite animators is a guy by the name of Glenn Keane. We've talked about him before. He animated a lot of really great characters that you love, I promise. Like Aladdin and The Beast and Ariel, Tarzan. So many great characters with a lot of heart, and Pocahontas. So he talked before about whenever he encounters a part of a drawing where he doesn't know how to do something, where, like, let's say there's an angle of a hand that he doesn't know how to draw. So that every time that happens, he gets so excited because he knows at the end of that journey, he's gonna know something that he didn't know when it started. So that's a great way to look at it, rather than looking at challenges as something that's annoying and kind of gets in the way, but it's actually something that will make you a better artist in person. So we learned. Okay, so for the front of his chest, there's a little color separation where the inside of his chest is white and then all the orange happens around it. So to do that, I'm gonna start where the thumb met the hand and then kind of draw a rounded line here. This is going to go all the way down to the belly. So the left side is a little more complicated of a line than the right side, so let's do that one first. So it's going to go straight down to about where the leg meets the body. And then from here it's just going to slope into the little line that we created right there. And now I'm just going to continue drawing this, even though this is going to be behind his hand. It's just helpful to know that it's all one shape. And this just continues here. We're going to bring it to the bottom, but I'm gonna have it round out a little bit to show that it's not just totally flat there. So now we gotta give him a tail. Let's put the tail on this side. I wasn't gonna put it on the left side, but we have all these shapes. So rather than drawing over them, I have this perfectly good size over here. So I'm gonna do a rounded line here and then kind of a sharp turn upward. And then one of those shapes. So if you look at that now, it's kind of like a letter S with some corners. This next part is easy, because then you just follow it. Kind of parallel around. Okay, the one thing that we didn't give him yet are his eyeballs. So let's go ahead and do those. Those are really simple. We already have this center line built, so I'm just gonna put one eye here, and that's an oval, like that. It's so small. I wish I could zoom into it. Let's see if I can. I'll move this over so we can zoom. Let's test out the technology. Okay, so I have that here, and I put the other one on the other side. Pretty simple, just those ovals, and then on top of those ovals you can do these rounded lines. Okay, let's go ahead and move this back. Make sure we zoom out. Okay. And that is our underdrawing for Tigger. So I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and start doing some stripes, because those are important. So we're going to put one stripe here. This is a pretty characteristic stripe on him. And when we color the stripes in too, we're gonna do a technique to that. Pretty cool. And then now we're gonna do one on this side. This is gonna be behind the mouth corner and kind of comes up rounded and overlaps the eye mask that we have here. Another one comes up from the eye mask. Remember, he's really a rounded character, so none of these should be straight. They're kind of following the flow of him. And another one coming from up top. So the Tigger that we're drawing is based off of the Tigger from Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, with animation by Milt Kahl, who was one of the 9 old men. I don't know that we've done many Milt Kahl characters, but they're all so fun to draw. They're kind of complex. I'm gonna draw some of these stripes while we're talking. They're complex, even in their simplicity. You might look at Tigger and think he's pretty simple, but there's just, you saw, a lot of really sophisticated changes in direction that make it feel unique. So he's a great artist to learn from, and he's one of the artists too that a lot of the animators would go to get notes on their work, because he had a great sense of appeal and design. So later, Tigger was animated by Andreas Deja, in the more recent Winnie the Pooh film. And Andreas is probably the biggest Milk Call fan. Studied his work, continues to study his work, I'm sure. We've done an Andreas character before. We drew Scar. There's another cat, but that was on a villains week. Notice how, just to go back to these, all of these stripes are rounded, like we talked about. A thin one here. Try to pull up some milk drawings for you as well. But I've seen some artwork from the Animation Research Library, which is where all of the classic animation drawings are kept in temperature controlled rooms to make sure that they don't degrade. And they have all this artwork there that animators can study and learn from. And even in Milt's drawings, you could see that there are drawings where he kind of did this kind of things, where he figured out how to draw a thing that confused him and that he needed to learn about. So even if you feel like your drawings are too scratchy and there's too much unnecessary lines on it as you're figuring it out, that's okay. You give yourself a break. I think we can be too hard on ourselves, especially the time when we're all supposed to be resting and learning and listening. I want to change this line, make that more straight. So before we forget too, he's got a bunch of whiskers that are this really fun shape that are kind of atypical for whiskers. Whiskers normally are these like straight lines, or we've drawn them long rounded lines, but his kind of have a little curl at the end of it. He's a little kooky, so I'm actually going to start at the end of it and then just draw those coming out here. Do as many as you like. I'm going to do 3 here. Oh, I forgot the tail. So for his tail, the tip of the tail is black. It's a little more rounded than I did it. And he's got 3 little black stripes that we're going to be able to see here, and then 2 little ones that kind of come towards each other. Make them a little offset. Let's go see if I can find some drawings in the book. Probably one of the most famous Tigger scenes. This is, again, this book, the Disney Sketchbook. But it's just such a fun character to draw. Squishy, and there's no one else like him. He's the first to tell you that. He's the only one. But I love this. Look how scratchy these Tigger drawings are. So I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do these amazing, perfect drawings first, but even the people who created the characters still had to learn to draw them like that. All right, would you like to outline yours? I want to outline mine. If you've seen this class before, you know that I am right-handed, so my drawings usually get outlined from the left to the right. That way I don't smudge over everything. So I'm going to start over here. Move some of these other pencils out of the way. Tigger's always been one of my favorite characters, so I was happy to include him in Cats Week. Technically he's a tiger, I think he would dispute that, but it's been fun to see all the different shapes that Disney cats have. Kind of all starting from the same DNA, but slowly changing in order to be a unique design. So we talked about it yesterday with Marie, but the outlining style for this film was similar to that film, where it was the original animator's drawings, and they kind of are kept alive through the, call it the boil in the drawings, where you see the lines kind of shake around each other. So it's cool to see the animators' drawings in their work like that. I think they were excited to see it too when that process was developed. So while we're coloring in things, we should know that this area that we designated around the eyes is all white. The nose is a red, like a maroon kind of color. And then the muzzle is white and the chest is white. But everything else is orange. Oh wait, also the insides of the ears are not orange, they're white. Whoa, that's always scary. Start outlining some of these. So when we do the stripes, instead of coloring them in all the way, what's fun about the film, if you look at it closely, is that a lot of times it's colored in, leaving a little bit of space in between. So like for instance, that doesn't color in all the way, and I'll do this one the same. So it just gives it a little bit of texture, almost like it's fur. Some of these stripes down here might get a little confusing, so I'm going to start coloring them in now. That's the arm. This is a stripe that goes behind the back. And that's the stripe on the bottom of the upper arm. this week we've colored in cheetah spots, we've colored in bows, we've colored eyes, random colors like yellow and blue. And so many variations on cats. It's been cool to see. Now we're doing stripes. You guys will have to let me know in your comments who is your favorite cat to draw this week. It's like he's got these big baggy pants on. It's been cool to hear from a lot of people who recently have discovered the classes and then kind of being a little easier on themselves as they draw, or maybe starting to draw for the first time after thinking maybe they weren't going to be good artists because they were told that probably once. I think that's one of the things I'm happiest about from these classes, is that it has opened up the doors for people to discover drawing who maybe thought that it wasn't for them, or thought that maybe they just never had the skill for it. But hopefully you can see that, like any skill, it just takes practice and kind of releasing yourself of all the weird self-doubt that we all inherit from something. Probably from someone telling you that's not how it's done. Which can be true sometimes, but that's just not how they did it. So you can make your own way. It's been cool to hear from people who discovered that it should just be a fun time. If you are new to this class 2, this is our second character that we've drawn from Winnie the Pooh. Earlier, we drew Winnie the Pooh. And on that note, this is our 40th drawing together. So if you're new and you're wondering why we haven't done a character that you love, we might have already done it. There's also a lot of other resources too that have started during this quarantine time. I know some people had asked that we draw Simba, and one of my favorite animators has actually done a demo for how to draw Simba, and what's even better is that he was the animation supervisor for Simba on the film. So Simba is of course one of the major Disney cats, one of my favorites. But since you already have the tutorial from Mark Henn through the Disney Animation Instagram and social media. What better person to learn it from? So you guys should just go check that out. Learn how to draw Simba from the guy who designed and animated Simba. Somewhere in this desk I have the drawing that I did of Simba using his tutorial. And we're about done with the hard part, and then we can just start coloring in the rest, and then we're done. Also, some people have suggested that we draw some Pixar characters, and Pixar has actually started doing their own drawing classes. You should check those out. They've done Woody and Lightning McQueen and Mater, some characters from Onward, Duke Kaboom. Duke Kaboom tutorial is done by a friend of mine, Emily Goulet. We worked together on Big Hero 6. And she was at Disney, and now she's at Pixar. So there's a lot of great tutorials out there from studios all over. Encourage you guys to go check out their pages too and see if they have some good drawing tutorials. Okay, so I'm gonna color in the nose. Oh, we forgot the whiskers. For the nose, I just have this maroon color. And when I'm coloring into, I try to go the same direction so that I'm not making it look too muddy. Yeah, and we can just hide all those construction lines. Remember, we're not coloring in this area around the eyes. Or the insides of the ears, so we're just going to color these parts. While we're here, I'm going to do those whiskers before I forget. Again, we're leaving the center of the body white. Stripes are so much fun, they add a ton of detail to your drawing. You saw, and you did them. They're very easy to do. Start shading a little bit before I get too far down the drawing. Hand. And all those underlying drawings go away. It really is my favorite way to work. It's kind of general to specific, or I've heard it called rough to fine. And then you just build details on top of it. And then eventually all of the work that you did kind of fades away. And then your drawing looks like you know what you're doing the whole time. You guys' Marie drawings from yesterday were so charming. Makes me happy to see everything that everyone does. I always look at all the drawings at the end of the night, kind of see how they're similar and different from each other. But it didn't matter what. Marie was cute. You guys did a great job. Tigger nowadays, you might not know this, is voiced by the same voice actor who does a lot of characters. We've done a few of his characters before, but he does the voice for Winnie the Pooh also. So those scenes where Winnie the Pooh is talking to Tigger. Pretty crazy, he's doing both. So even though this foot over here is sort of outlined pretty dark with the pencil, it's not so distracting that it makes the whole drawing feel like garbage. So that's why I encourage everyone to finish their drawings and not feel like they have to make them perfect. Because a drawing is rarely perfect. There's always something you can do to fix it. Even professionals feel that way, so don't undercut your own growth by stopping. A little bit more shading. We'll make that part feel like it was supposed to be that way. Shading under the hand. I think we did it. I think we drew our Tigger. So now that we're done, we have to make sure that we sign it. I'm going to sign mine right down here. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to go ahead and clean off my hands now that we're done using those art supplies. I would love to see your drawing, so please go ahead and share it with me on Instagram or Twitter using the hashtag #DrawingWithWoodsy. That's the best way to share your drawing, and if you want bonus points, you can share your story to Instagram and then tag me in it. My hashtag, or my username, is AnimWoodsy, and if you do that, then I'm able to share it to my stories, and then at the end of the day, you can just see everyone's drawings together, click through it. So that's always my favorite part of the night. Remember, finish your drawing, color it, share it, sign it, and remember, just because we're separated doesn't mean we have to be alone. So thank you for spending your Friday with me. I hope you enjoyed Cats Week, and I'll see you again next week. Bye now.